Hello, geeks and peeps, and welcome to Barely Reviewable, a podcast where two brothers review films, shows, games, you name it. I'm here with my co-host and my brother, Addison Ellis. How you doing, Ed?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Well said. Okay, that's it. Okay. Well, what a start. So yeah, the topic of the day is the Batman. It came out, was it probably a couple weeks ago? A few weeks ago, I would imagine.
Yeah, at least we kind of are coming to this a little bit later than most folks.
Yeah.
I imagine.
Don't want to interact with those first week crowd people because they're insane and COVID. So
Yeah, we're elitists, so makes sense.
Yeah, we like to enjoy our film. We don't like to scream at it like a bunch of sheep as we clap hard for the.
No, but we did two popcorn like sheep. We did.
That's fair.
We did become the popcorn munchers. It's fun. I was self-aware of it, but it's come on, man. We can be a little plebeian, man. It's all good.
Fair enough. So let's talk about the Batman. At least the basic summarization of the plot. How would you summarize the plot of this film?
Kind of in very general, non-spoilery terms, Batman and Gordon and the police of Gotham City investigate a series of serial murders, kind of in the way, if you've seen the film Seven, kind of very grandiose, and each one has a sort of theme, all orchestrated by Batman's classic villain, the Riddler. And through this investigation, lots of twists and turns, encounters with crime bosses and the corrupt, and just trying to uncover what, slowly unravels into a much bigger conspiracy. And I'll leave it at that for, spoilers and stuff.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, pretty much that's how the film goes. So what were your overall thoughts on the film?
I liked it a lot. I'm not at the point where I could say, like, oh, I loved it. I'm going to want to, watch it on a, even a yearly basis, maybe once in a while. But you know what? For 3 hours, yeah, good Lord. 3 hours, it moved at a really good clip. And again, it keeps you invested, interesting. It's keep interested in spite of some moments where I think it did drag a little bit. For about 90% of the picture, I'd say, yeah. Again, lots of great cinematography, lots of great performances. Really not too many complaints from my end. It is a lot as far as time investment, because if in real world terms, like, I don't know, this isn't like, I'll just sit down, half watch a movie. You do have to pay attention.
Oh yeah. And again, I think that's one of the strengths of the film too. It is a film that's not trying to be a purely popcorn Marvel-esque film. It's trying to make you get invested in the story and in the mystery. And yeah, no, I personally I really enjoyed it. I think it's a very rough diamond. It has a lot of kind of issues here and there with story stuff and some. And maybe more minor nitpicking regarding like how certain shots were utilized or whatever. But I think for the most part, there's a lot of great concepts and ideas at the helm that I think make this probably one of the more definitive interpretations of the Batman.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I did feel like, especially in terms of depicting the city, I definitely felt like this was the first time, outside of some of the shots in Tim Burton's interpretations, like this felt like, oh, I'm seeing Gotham for the first time.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, to differentiate from Burton started the whole Gothic sort of element, I guess, of these films. But this one does it more in which it's a very grounded Gothic. It's not kind of quirky. I kind of define Burton's style as kind of like a clowny Gothic. where
Yeah.
it's very quirky, but yet there is very dark elements to it. But this one, it's a lot more gritty, a lot more Victorian Gothic feeling to it, which I think adds to more of its dry, serious tone. And it is kind of the Gotham that I always pictured, and the idea is that it's a city upon a city inside a city inside a city,
Yeah.
kind of like a little like Dark City.
So it feels again like even on some level again like post-apocalyptic almost, or dystopian, I should say.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
like this big sprawl, and it strikes like an interesting balance between, again, like you said, the very very stylized like Tim Burton stuff, but then you have again the other end of the spectrum is Chris Nolan, very trying to be as realistic as possible, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yet there's a little bit of camp as far as like the technology, or maybe not camp, but slightly again like futuristic tech, but never goes to that level of that we see in like the Nolan films. It's kind of almost analog future tech outside of people's cell phones, which they do acknowledge that. But especially like Batman's tech and stuff feels, again, it's kind of cool. It's like a weird mix of retro and new and stuff, and like, that's neat.
Yeah, exactly. And again, and it's that perfect balance essentially. It's and that's kind of one issue I had with the Nolan films, is that he tried to make it so relatable and so realistic to the point in which that it really clashed with the overall Batman aesthetic.
Yeah.
And
it is weird. It is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It works, like, especially thinking about the film of The Dark Knight. It works when you watch it, but when you, well, at least for me, when I tend to reminisce about it, it's a very strange clash. And in this one, that tone really just kind of anchors the entire world together and the characters together. And it almost kind of like, it feels like this film doesn't really take place in any specific kind of era. It just kind of takes place in its own dystopic world.
Yeah,
there's
really, again, the only hallmarks that this that makes it very much for a time, I feel, at least technologically, are just the phones. Again, Batman's tech feels like something out of the comic books, but again, it feels like something imagined from like the 70s or 80s or something.
It's very analog. I think you remember telling me it's very analog.
He twists knobs and stuff, and to replay video and things like that. And just again, it's not like, again, everything's not really nice LCD screens and videos and things like that.
Look, and there's also a lot of like old Blade Runner like aesthetic, especially with like kind of central Gotham.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that kind of, and again, this shows you the testament of how revolutionary Blade Runner was for its time too. But you do get that sense that it is this dark dystopian world, even though it's supposed to be set in like 2024 supposedly. So
just lots and lots of rain and neon shining through over bunches and bunches of nooks and crannies of darkness. It's just nice atmosphere stuff.
Yeah. And let's talk about the performances for a second. What did you think of the performances overall?
Pretty strong. Really enjoyed what was her name? Is Zoe Kravitz?
Yeah.
Zoe Kravitz, yeah. Okay. No, Lenny. Zoe. Zoe Kravitz. I think, I remember we talked about it a little bit after the movie, but she is probably my favorite portrayal of Catwoman.
Yep, so and I agree.
She's got that's the funny thing, because the world might be a little bit, it has that heightened sense to some degree as far as the technology and stuff is concerned, as far as the city is designed and how it's laid out, but the characters still feel very real. And other than Riddler, which we could talk about a little bit, I think that portrayal goes a little hammy, a little bit.
A little bit.
But I know they're trying to make it like realistic to some degree, as far as like internet unusual people on the
Yeah.
internet,
Yeah.
because there is that lack of self-awareness from
Yeah.
those types of people,
Mm-hmm.
and lack of self-recognition. So that makes a little bit more sense. But people like Kravitz, Pattinson himself, again, they are just, they feel like very real people with real traumas and pains,
Mm-hmm.
and things they probably get up to, in quiet time and with hobbies and stuff. At least Kravitz, maybe Patton. It makes more sense for Pattinson that he probably doesn't have too many hobbies outside of what he
Yeah.
does, where he's at as the Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. Oh, and there's Colin Farrell, who's just like he's a
yeah,
bit more exaggerated, I suppose.
supporting
He's a
cast.
little bit out there.
That is very
Yeah.
true. But I'll also say, just a great character, even though he is hamming it up.
Oh yeah, but
Pretty
it
good.
works.
Yeah.
It works for the Penguin.
Yeah, and
Completely.
and the thing is, even then, there's little moments where, like, okay, this guy has other stuff going on still. There's just a weird, like, him knowing Spanish. There's a point that a plot point that comes up, because we're not quite into spoilers yet. But the fact that he recognizes Spanish language, and is just like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's like, it's just funny. And there's a guy's got an honor code and things like. Again, there's stuff that they give him to add a little bit more depth than just he's the Penguin from those the classic Batman programs or something.
Yeah, the Adam West film shows.
West. Like Adam something. Doggone it, it's been too long.
Yeah,
my brain.
It's been a long time. When you rewatch those again, but
absolutely.
But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's. I think it is trying to go for a more realistic kind of representation of these characters. Again, Zoe Kravitz, I agree. She was really fantastic as a role. And I was reading up on some trivia. Apparently, she tried to test out, or they wouldn't allow her to test out because it was like too ethnic or too.
Oh yeah, that was the third, the Dark Knight.
Yeah, Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah,
it's like that's that. Wow, that's.
Oh no, yeah, they said. Oh, wasn't it urban?
Too urban.
She's too urban. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Stupid.
Good Lord.
But no, yeah, absolutely great. And also, again, maybe it's for the better, because again, I think script wise, this again how she's written is a far more interesting, character.
Oh yeah, and she's got more to do here too. I mean, I compare this to Anne Hathaway, who I don't necessarily care for regarding her performance in the film. I think she was miscast, and her characterization is really weak because, well, and this is more of an issue with Dark Knight Rises in general, that most of the character development is in service to the overall plot arc and the overall focus of Batman versus Bane.
Yeah.
And in this, though, Kravitz has much more to do as a character, and there is a stronger relationship here that feels more earned regarding the Batman and Catwoman than in The Dark Knight Rises, which pretty much they don't have literally little to no of what's the word I'm thinking? They don't have
chemistry.
Little to no chemistry. Yeah, chemistry. But yeah, and Robert Pattinson, it's an interesting performance. I think a common critical consensus I've been seeing for some people is that he does whisper a lot. I think it works more in the Batman, and I can understand it too for Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
But in certain scenes, I wish he did emote more. Especially there's an emotional scene between him and Alfred. I feel like he could have showed a little bit more emotion. But again, this is an interpretation which is heavily inspired by the likes of Kurt Cobain. So just him being a consistent, depressive, unhappy individual who just wants to kind of hide away from the world is an interesting interpretation. And having that lack of dichotomy between the Batman and Bruce Wayne is quite interesting as well. And if anything, the Batman brings out more energy from Bruce Wayne, which I find to be kind of interesting. Maybe that was what they were going for the performance too, in which he's a little bit more... He's quiet, but I don't know, there's a bit more oomph to how he acts and reacts around people.
Like, you mean Batman, or is this Bruce Wayne in general?
Batman. Yeah.
Yeah. I do wonder.
Hmm.
This, if it's sparked by that kind of again the mix of trauma and should we get into spoilers anyway? By the way, I don't know if we should.
Yeah, sure. We can get into
Just
that. So again, overall,
yeah.
we Ad like the film. I really enjoyed it. I think I am getting close to loving it. It's getting. I think on multiple repeat viewings, I'm going to be enjoying this more and more. It's not a perfect film. I think overall there are some shots that linger too long on certain people for reaction shots, where there are convenient plot points that are kind of a generic writing standard. But overall, it's a really fun time, and I'm excited to see what they do for a sequel. So anyway, on to spoilers. So yeah, you were saying what we were going to talk about for
Well, in
spoilers.
terms of the again, the Riddler being that incel type
Mm-hmm.
of individual, just really a loner, has lots of again like a mental condition of some sort, and again untreated and kind of
Mm-hmm.
left to his own devices and internet culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that paralleling what we see with Bruce Wayne, and that's the other thing we find out at the near in the last third of the film
Mm-hmm.
that Bruce's dad was involved in some really shady shit, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it sourced from the fact that his mom was put in a mental institution at some point, and he wanted to
Mm-hmm.
cover that up, and it might be a way to protect her, of course.
Yeah.
But that is interesting. It sets a precedent for why Bruce is the way he is.
Yeah, and I can see criticism saying that it kind of takes away from his overall psychological disruption from his parents getting killed. It kind of just seems like a cop out, because they're saying that, oh, he was always fucked up to begin with.
But the thing is, it's like a lot of that stuff. A lot of the reason why there are people, again, they have certain mental conditions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the circumstances around them too that will drive them into
That's
like
true.
really
That's very true.
criminal acts. And so in the case of the Riddler, he was an orphan. He didn't have that
Yeah.
support group, and he talks about the trauma of living in that orphanage and the horrors that he witnessed, and just like
Mm-hmm.
baby dying every winter because it got so cold,
Yeah.
rats ripping into your fingers as you slept, and things like that.
Yeah.
That's just trauma, and he doesn't have a support group to pull him out of it, to talk to. And he finds community online with people that are also messed up, and then suddenly the trauma
Mm-hmm.
becomes normalized. And again, like,
Yeah.
hey, this isn't our fault. It's the world's fault. It's that anger turned outwards. But again, Batman has a support group, and even though that anger
Mm-hmm.
is turned outward, especially for the first 2/3 of the film, I'm going to beat the crap out of villains and stuff like that. I'm going to essentially stop people from getting hurt like I was by hurting people. And that
Yeah.
emphasis seems to be on the hurting back. But by the end of the film, we see again that it's a shift from I am a force of vengeance to I am a savior, a symbol of hope to people.
Yeah.
I can be
Yeah.
more than just a causer of pain. I can relieve that pain. And again, that's from that support group and having that help and love and care around him, I
Exactly.
think. Yeah.
And really, this entire film, I think you remember you telling me this yesterday, that it's like a spat in the face with like the Zack Snyder viewpoint on superheroes.
A little
Essentially,
bit. Just a
a
little
little
bit.
bit. Yeah, they're not just giant godly symbols that don't like doing what they're doing. In this, he generally wants to try, because at least from his viewpoint, everybody in Gotham is hurting and everybody in Gotham is going through shit. And
Yeah.
so he's just trying to do what he can to make it less shitty for everybody else. And that's, again, I think that's very a part of the character in the comics too.
Yeah.
And I think that this is like a very accurate representation of the character in many ways, farther than the Batman predecessors before him.
Because like the Snyder and the Frank Miller versions of him, it's like you're supposed to, they are gods The
Mm-hmm.
comics deal with the weight of being a god, and you should, the normal people should just trust them implicitly because they are strong. And
Mm-hmm.
as we see in this, again, especially towards the end of the film, uh, Batman's questioning himself all the time. Bruce finds out again the twists of his family and their murder, and it shakes up his values. Like, he can't keep seeing purely in black and white. Batman just being this wall, this authority figure, and makes the only, he's good. He is good. That is it.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to see the other side of it. Again, that's the whole separation between me and the Riddler. He's able to,
Yeah.
recognize the self, but again, he can only do that, and that's also an interesting aspect too. He can only do that in part because of his privilege and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
know there's controversy about that stuff, but it's true though, because he had the money and he had people around him that genuinely cared about him,
Yeah.
and so
Well, I
keeping
would say it's
balance.
more. I would say is more the idea that he has positive role models around him
Yeah.
more than just his privilege.
Well, I mean, the you could argue the privilege in terms of, because I mean, if wasn't rich, he wouldn't have a butler who would look after him, what have you, and also
Mm-hmm.
the money to pursue whatever ends he desires. I don't know,
True.
but as far as the grounding, definitely in Alfred,
Mm-hmm.
um, to have somebody that is willing to go down this road, but again recognizes problematic parts and tries to encourage him in certain
Mm-hmm.
directions, and tries to
Yeah.
make sure that he keeps an even keel in spite of the
Mm-hmm.
fact that he's clearly unwell.
Yeah, and in a way too, because Alfred is played by Andy Serkis. He's really great in this too, even though he's kind of underused. I feel like there's probably cut scenes on the cutting room floor, but he's really great in this. I just get that sense from Alfred too that they had that relationship where he was probably really rough with Bruce, and that over the year he's kind of realized, and he tells Bruce this too when he's in the hospital. I wasn't your father. You needed a father. I only teach you how to fight. I could never give you the compassion, the love that your actual parents could give you, which I found to be kind of interesting because this interpretation of Alfred is like he is an ex-military, which is very similar to the Batman
Yeah,
Earth One
maybe
comic book,
X
which is
spy
yeah,
stuff too. Again, I think he references My Time in the Circus, which I think might be a
yeah,
reference to MI5, according to Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. But
yeah. It's MI6. I think I think I looked on the IMDb. It's about
MI6.
MI6. Yeah.
Mm.
There's a lot of this character complexity in this film, and yeah, I think it's just really solid in that regard.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And again, trying to deal with something that is funny too. It's still something that's very prescient today. Again, that mix of mental illness and
Mm-hmm.
internet culture, and you know the
Yeah,
lack of money or with money, how that influences somebody under those circumstances, and
yeah.
growing up in those circumstances.
Because like the Dark Knight kind of touched upon it a little bit, but due to the unknown origin of the Joker, it's more or less about his current beliefs and his current actions that dictate the differing characters of the Batman and the Joker. So having this bit more of a personal history between the two characters, it really just adds a bit more emotional and character complexity that I think was kind of missing here and there. Although it was kind of in the first Batman film with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson a little bit,
Yeah,
but
that's the big thing, is I think, because again, this is younger Bruce Wayne, and
mm-hmm.
on some level he does take his wealth um, kind of for granted.
Yeah,
He's just allowed to mope. He's like, dude, you have all this money, you can't actually spend it to help people. Like, you
that's
can,
true.
but he's just so caught up, and and again, mentally he might, he's going through a lot, he's still dealing with that trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But verse that with Christopher Nolan's depictions, and he gets somebody that's a little bit more comfortable. He
Yeah,
knows what he
yeah.
wants, knows who he is and knows exactly what he wants to do with the money, and because he does actually, use his money and stuff like that. We're seeing again possibly the development into that, or probably something a little bit more, because again this is like the first time we're seeing Bruce deal with, I have resources that a whole lot of other people don't, and the Batman can be used for a force of good, and who knows, as the movies go on, I'm sure Bruce Wayne can be used as a force of good too.
In a way, it is the realization to be less selfish in that regard, of him just focusing on his career as the Batman and putting his money more into helping others. And again, that seems like what they're leading towards by the end of the film.
That's the kind of what was it? Riddler saying again, "I've seen your true face as the Batman." And that's that's come out a lot, but that's true. The Batman is who he really is, and when you see him as Bruce Wayne at his home, it's just so empty. He doesn't really have anything else yet.
Yeah, he's completely uncomfortable with who he is and around people, and it's just as he tells Alfred when he goes, because there's that funeral scene that's in the trailers where he goes in person and a car crashes through the building. And in that scene, he tells Alfred that he's only doing that because psychopaths like to see their work in, as it happens, as a self-gratification thing. So he's only doing that not because he wants to go outside and people to see him as Bruce Wayne. He's just doing it because it's part of the job.
His life is Batman, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the whole thing with outlets, that always the complaints with Alfred and every depiction, it's like there needs to be an end game here for you personally. You can't just keep going on like this, and that we are just seeing that early stages of he just doesn't have anything else really, as far as he sees it, like this is the job, it's the job. And he's making even his romance with Selena Kyle, that's made on the job kind of thing. And it's just like that how much of him is just the Batman, and that people are attracted to or afraid of by them being afraid of Batman. Is it something in him? And it's, I don't know, I find it very interesting, that whole
it just shows his complexity of and realizing that he can have more than what he's realizing. And when he's kind of shooting himself down and saying that he's only got one purpose, then to seek vengeance on others. But like, no, you can have a life. You can have a friend in Jim Gordon, and you can have a father figure in Alfred. And so this is sort of a film that he starts to realize that.
Yeah, and they're not like just especially like Gordon and stuff, and Catwoman for that matter. They're not just using him. They might have at first, but they're not just using him for the sake of using him as a good tool. Clearly, there's like care, and like, man, I want you to be okay, dude.
Exactly.
We want to make sure, not beyond injury, making sure they're okay mentally, emotionally, and stuff. We see that a little bit, but especially, of course, with Alfred. Even I think with Selena Kyle as well.
Yeah, exactly. So what did you, this is kind of transition to a next different topic. So what did you think of the action in this film? What did you think of the overall action? Because I think it's pretty decent. It's serviceable for the most part, I would say.
I'd say even like above average. Like it's the things are well choreographed. There are a lot of moments that are memorable, like during the course of the action sequences. A particular scene in the middle involving again Batman and Catwoman kind of dropping in on a a money pickup by the Penguin. That I thought that sequence was pretty great. And
the Batman Bull is really used really well in that.
And again, how it's introduced and that build up to that moment, and even just the gunfire exchanges with Gordon involved and stuff like that. Again, it was a well paced action sequence. It's probably the highlight for me in terms of the action
Yeah,
overall.
I would say that probably that, and then the ending fight in the arena. Probably that's where they kind of try to pull all the stops of the choreography and
Yeah,
just fun.
yeah. To be honest with you, that one it was okay for me.
Really?
Like, yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
it was a good climax and made sense in terms of how
Mm-hmm.
they had set things up. It was okay. Now that we talk about like little nitpicks, arguably,
Mm-hmm.
um, so Batman put all those explosives at the top of that building so that he could make a dramatic exit while people are going to be shot. He made all those explosives on the lines of the. No, I don't know. It's just so you can have again dramatic glass fall kind of thing, right?
Maybe that's a good
Yeah.
point.
That's
That's a
all.
very good point. Hmm.
That's one of those like, dude, break in there, help people. People are being shot, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, I think it didn't jostle some of the shooters off of the thing. I think didn't it kind of.
it definitely, kind of, freaked them out and surprised them. But I don't think it like affected the platform they were on or anything. Or
Yeah, yeah.
that's what I think. Like if it had something to do with like immediately upsetting their position,
Mm-hmm.
so that what's it called? Is it scaffolding? I forget what they call it. And
Yeah,
that,
probably scaffolding or yeah.
anyway,
Um,
the bars and walkways and at the top of like a auditorium or something.
mhm.
If he was jostling that so that they couldn't shoot or actually fall off or something, that would make more sense to me. But yeah, you think he does it for kind of shock value, dramatic entrance. But again, he waits till they start shooting, and then he blows it. Just kind of weird. Just kind of.
To be fair, you could argue that he couldn't get there in time before they started shooting. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
can see
then
both arguments on that.
he got there in time to lay down bombs to
Well,
detonate the
well, to be
West
fair, he
Side.
has a bomb gun. There's promotional stuff where he's got a bomb, so it's not like he's just like slowly placing stuff down. So I don't know,
I only saw.
but
Well, I know he has one. He puts like a little detonator on a fire extinguisher.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but admittedly, that he does that manually. So yeah,
yeah,
one of his
but
gadgets.
not. Well, I remember seeing there's like a maquette of him, and they show like he's got like a sticky bomb gun, which is looks like kind of like
Maybe
something
they
like a.
cut that out because I don't remember that used in the film.
Yeah, no, but he has it strapped to his leg. That's what's strapped. I
Okay,
think that's what's in his holster.
but they don't
But
actually. But as far as what we've seen in the film, they don't actually show it in the film.
no, they again and
Deleted scene.
you. Yeah, for the longest time, I thought that was supposed to be his grappling hook, but those are just like he's got the whole what is it called? The mechanism that you just like you lift your wrist
Oh,
up and
grappling
the
hook.
gun.
Like
Yeah, the grappling hook,
yeah.
but I forget what type of mechanism that it's used from like gunfighters back in the day.
Oh,
The whole you
holster.
lift. No. The that's strapped to your wrist, kind of like what in Django Unchained, what Doctor Schultz had,
Oh,
the
like
gun
a
mechanism.
Derringer thing.
The Derringer, but yeah, the gun mechanism that
Yeah, that makes a
the wrist gun
launch
mechanism.
out of your sleeve or something. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So he's got two of those on each hand, which is I think a pretty cool idea. It actually makes a lot more sense than to have one of those than just have a gun that you have to pull out manually every time. But
yeah. No, I did note that when he does his actual grappling. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, but that's one of those things probably explained in a deleted scene. And
probably. Yeah.
but admittedly, film's 3 hours. They probably cut that for that purpose. Just have him make a dramatic entrance. Just let him go, and then
Yeah.
if you're really invested, you're not gonna notice it. And admittedly, by around that during that sequence, I was kind of like, oh, okay,
Yeah, it's fine.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, no, again, yeah, the combat is serviceable overall. I think well, most of the Batman films are kind of serviceable with their. I don't really have any notable. Like the Bane fight, I know is kind of highly supported among fans. I think it's very okay.
Yeah.
In the Dark Knight Rises, it's fine. It's kind of awkward. Um, I'm trying to think of any like notable Batman fights apart from say like the Batman
V
v
Superman.
Superman,
Yeah.
which is probably the best Batman thing. It's like the most Batman-y Batman thing.
Batman.
Um,
Yeah. Like a lot of his fights they're actually personally again I really think they're actually pretty good, all things considered. I because again the punches seem they do a really great job. Like those seem like they're hitting hard. That was one of my complaints in the Christopher Nolan films. For some reason, sometimes he withheld punch noises, or they just sounded very kind of wimpy kind of thing. But these
like they're hitting like a punching bag with really lightly.
Yes, but these ones you can he's hurting them. It feels very visceral.
Yeah, you hear crackling of bone.
When he goes into the club and he just screws up a bunch of guys.
Yeah. The I think they're supposed to be Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Really?
I think that's because those are the twins in the comics.
Yeah,
they're like Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Which one's a Mad Hatter?
True, but
that's
it
pretty
could just. I think I think that those are characters.
Yeah, they are. They definitely are.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I like how there's always that they're always interacting with them at the door. They did it 3 times.
Yeah,
and by the 3rd time, they're just like, I'm just gonna walk past you. This is not worth it. They're always getting their ass beaten.
That's pretty great
in this film. Yeah, it's pretty good.
But the thing is, again, like you just said, he shoots a stinging grappling hook through one of their legs. Again, it's like he's not quite full murder psycho Ben Affleck Batman, but no, this one again just really violent, heavy punches and kicks and breaks, lots of breaks.
Yeah. Like the whole adrenaline scene, which looks eerily similar to like Venom that Bane uses. It's like a light green liquid that he injects himself when he's been shot to bits and he's completely tired and probably concussed.
Yeah.
And so this one guy pins Catwoman down with a knife at her throat, essentially, as he's trying to kill her, and then he ends up saying, "Screw it," just injects himself with some like adrenaline.
Batman does,
Yeah, Batman does, and then he just goes complete apeshit, insane, and just starts beating the crap out of this guy repeatedly.
Like hits him like 8 times right in the face on top of him. Boom, 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 boom. And again, it has again that factor of it. It feels again heavier. It just feels a little harder again. Versus the Christopher Nolan films where I think things felt a bit more staged. Of course, then again, he was a bit more ninja-like, which makes sense as far as what the different origins we're kind of dealing with. But yeah, it was more about the stealth and the surprise and the kind of the horror part of Batman. This one, it's more of I am,
the ferocity.
I am fear because you can see me coming and you can't stop me.
And that's a really great thing. The whole fear element too. I think it's
I love that.
You get that in the. You get that in the Nolan films, mostly in the Batman Begins, but in this one you get that sense that like he is kind of terrifying, and there's that perfect introduction, the beginning of the film where he's monologuing, and there's this shots of the city where it's just complete darkness, and people see the bat signal, and they look in the darkness. They don't know where he is. They don't know what he can do.
You criminals all think he could be there. He could be there. He could be watching. He could be coming after me. And again, it's a different delivery of fear. Again, the Nolan ones, he is a shadow that just suddenly appears and can whip you up and beat you up and all this other kind of stuff. This one, he'll appear from the shadows and then he's just going to walk up to you and beat the crap out of you, and there's nothing you can do. And he's not afraid to come out of the shadows and mess you up and look you square in the eye. That is interesting too. Again, it's a different kind of terror, drilled into these criminals, and having a Batman that is bulletproof, and not just like bulletproof in modern
side
tech
glance.
sense. Yeah, like where you can take a bullet and like, oh, that hurts, cracked rib. Okay, but no,
Yeah.
Nolan's Batman wouldn't let himself get shot, or would always try to avoid being shot.
Yeah.
Pattinson just doesn't care because he's got the tech to protect him, and that is scary. It's essentially like you're looking at a tank coming up to you.
Yeah,
you can't get out of the way.
And I must say, the suit has grown on me. I remember despising how ugly it looked, but no, as I've seen more of the film, I've come to really love this suit. I think it is probably the best Batman suit, at least regarding it being in like a very realistic depiction. It is gorgeous to look at.
It definitely feels less like, again, and it's different origins of the suit, and the Nolan films, it's cleaner. Because he is working on parts of it himself, but a lot of the tech is already there or is being manufactured
by a military company.
By professionals and scientists and all this engineers and stuff like that. So it looks clean. It looks, again, nice. It has nice lines and stuff like that. This one, it's like leather that he probably sewed himself and armor that was it's still relatively clean, but it does have like a more like a do-it-yourself homemade kind of touches to it that make it feel, again, this was something that he did himself or had a little bit of help with, but was, again, clearly driven himself to put this thing together.
Exactly.
The symbol part, of course, is still important, clearly. But it's just it's very pretty suit. It's a very pretty suit. It's just not clean. It's a very pretty suit.
It's a very, very pretty suit.
It's very pretty. Pretty in a Mad Max way, kind of thing.
And I'm happy that this version of the film came out. I know that there's the Ben Affleck, his Arkham Asylum type of thing, which I have seen some concept art. It looks fine. I mean, I don't know.
They're still doing that?
Yeah, he was. That was what he was hired. That he was hired to direct and star and write.
But they're still doing it.
I don't think so. I think Ben Affleck's completely done. I don't think he gives a crap anymore. I think he's over it at this point.
After the Snyder Cut reshoots, he's done.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah, anything Snyder, at least that's no longer Superman or Batman, is probably done. I know. Well, there are rumors that after this Flashpoint movie, they're going to try to completely disregard a lot of the more recent DC stuff, like the Snyderverse and maybe even Wonder Woman 2, maybe. But I don't know if those are correct or not. But yeah, again, I'm glad that we didn't go with more of the Snyder universe stuff, because that is so up its ass regarding its own beliefs and its own just blatant symbolism and metaphors. And
no, this is a film that it cares about the people on the ground that have to deal with the villains and heroes. They care about their lives, their emotions, and the how just the actions above and the rotting of the city and stuff like that. Again, it's it's not just gods.
That's not to say that there's nothing wrong with depicting those god characters or like having a story that shows that, but when you have almost every character like that, it ends up becoming hollow to the audience, or at least to me, because you can't connect with anybody because they're all kind of this miserable, unhappy assholes that look down upon people and don't want to genuinely help out because they care about people.
So it's like they got God weight, and that's a different thing. It's the weight of the world kind of thing. It's not necessarily something as people we can relate to. You can get overwhelmed by the news. You can interpret that as weight of the world, but it's like you're not responsible for everything.
That's fair.
And on some level, that's not very relatable unless you're like someone, like the president, or if you're, in
a firefighter,
something, significant, where a lot of lives are, you're ultimately going to be responsible, whether they live or die or what have you.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. And a lot of people, again, are just not going to connect with that. But stuff like, again, that's why Batman's probably the most famous superhero. We compare him to Superman, the alien, who's super powerful, really, except for one element in the entire universe. He's invulnerable.
Pretty much, pretty much invulnerable.
It's like, there's inherently something that just, I guess it makes sense in retrospect, but it is alien. There's something wrong there, but Batman, of course, lost his parents, and it's he's fueled in part by a lot of trauma there.
But yeah, no, and I'm excited to see what they do in the sequel. I know that, at least regarding villain-wise, that Matt Reeves does not want to go the whole Joker route, and thank God. I know they hinted at that at the end of this, which was not in the original test screenings, but I don't know if that was a Warner Brothers decision or a Matt Reeves decision.
Studio Note reshoot, probably. Wouldn't be surprised. That feels like, hey, hint at future projects.
I hope not. In a way, I'm half and half on it. In a way, I don't like it. But the other half is that, if it's just like, yeah, these characters would interact with each other in prison. Okay, fair enough. That's about it. Hopefully, Warner Brothers does not force that down Matt Reeves' throat. Director Matt Reeves. But no, if they do like a Mr. Freeze for the next film, that would be really great. I think that's a character that also has a lot of self-exploration.
Lots of pathos.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if they go off this more of kind of like what Tim Burton did, he really tried to do the Batman self-reflection thing too. I mean, I guess pretty much all of these Batman films have, but to varying degrees. I think Nolan's films, at least for the Joker for sure, but then Batman Begins, not really. They didn't really do the self-reflection thing with Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
And then I guess kind of with Dark Knight Rises,
it was
with
more
Bane.
With the Joker. I think more with the Joker, because the Joker. And a lot of it is the Joker trying to specifically emphasize or even drive that connection between them, whether or not it's really accurate when you kind of look at it. But I think ultimately this does the best job of doing the whole Batman and his villains are just, his villains are a reflection of him.
Completely.
Yeah,
completely. I agree with that.
Yeah. He's really just happens to be in a decent position, so he doesn't turn out to be a crazy mass shooter. Really, it's just between the money and the support group, he's able to avoid that. And I really like that. And again, seeing it in this early and especially at the end of the film, seeing him choose to make that, that turn of, I'm going to be a hero, not just, violent, beat up people vigilante. I'm going to help people. Yeah. And again, that's the distinguishing factor between he and his villains. And that is, again, I think it is ultimately best expressed in this film, even compared to the other ones. Yeah, and let's hope that they can continue that thematic analysis throughout this. I think they're doing a trilogy. I think this is their new trilogy. So I'll be honest. Part of me, if they do a focus on Mr. Freeze and stuff, and it's again nice. I can see that being a very well done character study. In part, I'm also down for a full Rogues Gallery Arkham thing, but again, if they did like the adaptation in the tone of the classic Arkham Asylum graphic novel, this could fit that world. I could see that. Yeah, probably not as overly science fiction and supernatural as the comics go, but I think they can definitely lean really heavily into that stuff. But yeah, no, this overall just a really damn good film. Absolutely, would recommend. Yeah. You just, again, it's not going to be a sit down, chill out for 2 hours popcorn movie, and then go and have a good night. You do have to plan a bit. Yeah. 3 hours is a lot. 3 hours is a lot for people.
Yeah, that's true.
But I will say, if you're invested and you're paying attention, that 3 hours is going to feel like 3 hours experientially. It's going to be a really fun time. But long movies are a problem if you're not fully into hero or superhero films in general. It might not. It might not be the one for you.
Fair.
I don't know if it's going to change your mind on a whole lot. It's better crafted than a lot of superhero films these days, but
I mean, I kind of compare this more to like the Logan in a way. Logan, I think you can like even if you're not a superhero film fan. It in itself, it's just a good, solid drama action western, and this works as, again, it's more of a vigilante mental health thriller than anything really. Crime.
It's entirely depends on the person. If your threshold for superhero stuff is pretty good, then I think you'll handle it fine. But if it's pretty low, I admit there's a part of me that this, because they treat things very seriously, very sincerely, versus like the Marvel films, which will crack jokes at the absurdity of their situations. You can see some I could see humor in it. Just the idea of this Riddler guy, like one of his victims has a stinking rat cage on him with rat tubes. Look at this guy. I could see that being somebody laughing at that.
Or him singing Maria, Ave Maria.
Yeah, that's where it kind of jumps the gun a little bit for me, but that performance.
That's probably the cringiest, or jokingly, but again, it's more of a subjective, in which because again, crazy people are cringy and laughable. So I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily a bad performance. I think it's just
it's a good soundbite. Crazy people are cringy and laughable.
I mean, they are. I mean, it's sort of like it's the red letter media argument of the fanatic, in which like, what was it, Mike? I thought that his performance was great because he's seen people who are exactly like that and are just incredibly embarrassing to watch. So again,
to some degree, but
I don't know. I don't think Paul Dowd did a bad job. I think it's just that.
No, I don't think he did a bad job either. I think it gets a little over hammy for my taste in a few moments. Yeah. Not all the time. It's not always like that, but in a few moments. But
yeah, exactly.
And I do recognize that there is something realistic, as we've seen like real videos of really odd people posted online without hints of sarcasm or self-recognition. It can feel very awkward. But that's the thing, especially in this, you could stop feeling threatening or like in.
That's fair.
Just again, kind of laughable, I think, for some people anyway. Again, you can always compare some of the scenes with the Riddler's recording himself thing to the Joker in Dark Knight, that the famous VHS scene filmed by Heath Ledger himself during that scene. That's scary. Still find that scary in this one when it cuts to the guy with I can't get back to it because it does look kind of silly to me, the guy with the rat cage on his head, and it's got the weird plastic tubing so the rats can crawl around. It's just like, okay,
I could see that, for sure. Again, to each their own in the end, again, if you laugh at it, you laugh at it. If you don't, you don't.
But just the other things will still carry it through, and especially the wider conspiracy that the Riddler is essentially doing this because of
the political corruption.
That is an interesting mystery. And one that is in part, going to mess with the characters emotionally and involves their pasts and all this. It's again that part of it, I think, is what really held me.
Exactly.
And it's to some degree, yes, the Riddler depiction itself is interesting, and like I said, the reflection paralleling part of it of him as a villain to Batman, that was what I was really invested in. The Riddler himself, though,
he was okay. He was serviceable, given he did the job that he was created to do for the plot.
Yeah.
Essentially. There again, he's not a Heath Ledger, in which he seems actually terrifying and genuinely menacing.
Yeah, I guess the scary part is that there are, the idea that there are people like this. But again, he might have just hemmed it up a little bit too much, so that breaks the reality of people like that just a little bit. Not exactly. Again, admittedly, there are people like that. There are people that would be that, again, just to have that complete lack of self-awareness and are that kind of mentally ill. But I think there is also generally like a more realistic level that they could have honed in on. That honestly, the stuff with the Riddler was the most, again, campy stuff in the whole film. And that's the only part that kind of broke it a little bit for me. But everything else in the world feels very real, but again, just slightly heightened reality. And I kind of like that area that they were developing with the characters, and even again, Penguin's again, he's got his own hammy bits himself, but again, there's depth given. And I guess again, credit to Colin Farrell behind all that makeup, man. You could see in his eyes all the time, like there's more stuff going on there.
Yeah,
and I like that. I like, again, in comparison, especially to Paul Dano, which again, fine actor. It just kind of missed the mark a bit for me in this one.
Fair enough. Okay, well, I guess we're at that point into the show where we go over our questions, or at least for today, our question. So it's another Star Wars question again. Here we go.
People like the Star Wars.
So, was Han a Force ghost at the end of The Last Jedi, or is he just, I don't know, like how did that happen? I'm pretty much, he was just the imagination of Kylo Ren, I would
he's real.
Gather.
He's real.
He's real?
He's real. It's forced ghost thing.
He survived? He survived getting stabbed in the chest?
No, it's Kylo Ren's uber force powers manifesting themselves and bringing his father back to speak to him when he needed him to.
Manifesting an elderly man who grew his hair out too much and then cut it before the shoot of the film.
Who didn't? I think I'd say that he might not be pure Force ghost in the sense of the Jedi who are becoming one with the Force. They've reached a heightened sense of existence and heightened form of existence. Maybe Han didn't reach that because he was just a dirty smuggler. But I can see, it just like there is the other thing. There's a spiritual world in existence after we know of in the Star Wars universe. So maybe he's just accessing that communication with them. That's all.
Maybe
it's speaking to him.
Who knows?
It's not Han, spurring that existence. It's Kylo. That's what I think. That's what I think.
Here's another question: how can Rey heal with the Force? How did she learn that so quickly? It's because she's the best at this. She's the best at these things. The best. Because she's gifted and she's the best at these things.
It all goes
because
back.
The writers.
It all goes back to Mary Sue.
Yes, she was written to be the most perfect, almost near perfect Jedi ever, and she's gifted with the Force. It's plot. It's all plot. There's no reason why she knows how to do the heal. It's because they didn't think of it was bad writing. Yeah, it's bad. It's just bad writing.
Usually, I hesitate to use that terminology of like they're Mary Sue, especially with her in the first movie. I think I wouldn't subscribe to that, but in the third movie, I really do think she just is. They just
they gave up on giving her anything like character wise.
You say she's the best. She's just the best.
She's just the best at this stuff
because we need her to do a lot of things to progress the plot So she's got to be the best, and she's just going to do it. So she could just heal without training because she's the best.
Yeah. Okay, so here's another question. What are our overall thoughts on episodes 7, 8, and 9? I liked episode 7, even though it was a rehash of the first film. I think it was a decent enough base to start a new trilogy on. And then
it's fun too.
Yeah.
It's got a pretty solid sense of fun.
Yeah, it's just like there was a lot of good characters to kind of jump off the series from. And then for some genius idea, J.J. Abrams did not want a continuity between any of the films or
no Bible. No world Bible.
No world Bible or story kind of a journey point. You just let it go because he likes those mysteries, but he doesn't know how to properly answer them.
Yeah.
And so Last Jedi, I respect a lot of elements, but I remember it being really boring. I think I've only seen it once in theaters. I remember it being really boring. And there's a lot of good elements. I remember liking Mark Hamill a lot in that, but he was very underutilized in the way his character was, in which he completely gave up on the Jedi. It just seemed very uncharacteristic of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's okay for him to change. I think the reasons for that change and how they express that, I think that's the stupidest part. Again, him become more cynical or something, okay, but we don't see that process really, and that's what makes it such a discordant turn for the character.
Yeah, because his whole point is that he fights and realizes, no, you can, even if you are in the dark side, you can still come back to the light. And so he should know that when he has, at least, even if it's like a blood relative that has that possibility, that no, every Jedi has the possibility to become like a Sith. It's just that you need to learn how to control that.
Well, you need to learn how to control, but also it's about the people you surround yourself with. And again, going back to the Batman, it's a support thing too.
Yeah,
the right teachers and the right friends too, like allies.
Yeah.
Like that.
So again, and then most of the film too is that it's just trying to subvert expectations for the audience. It's trying to say that all these questions that you wanted answered, even though it's almost like it's faulting the audience that we're trying to understand the answers. We want the answers to these questions, even though it's J.J. Abrams saying he's leaving all of these different plot elements open for answers.
It's trying to. The funny thing is, it's almost like spitting in the face of J.J. Abrams, because his whole thing is like, it's a mystery box. You raise a bunch of questions, you get people invested and interested, and Johnson's whole thing, is just none of that matters. And on some level, I respect that, especially when you boil it down to really, especially the main plot line is about Rey and Kylo Ren, their relationship, again, their personal histories and trauma. Again, I think it goes back to trauma. But like, it's just, what's there? So, like, for a lot of the films, it's dumb. That's the only thing. If the situations put in are there for some of the characters, it's just stupid, especially stuff for Poe Dameron and Finn and Rose, and they're really the only characters that get the benefit of, okay, no, you should be focusing on the characters here, the characters in their lives. The most interesting and depthful relationship is just Rey and Kylo Ren, and that's like a quarter of the storylines. So,
and that is like the strongest bit. And then that was like, at least for when Rian Johnson was at the helm, the Last Jedi, the whole Rey and Kylo Ren dynamic was like the most interesting bit. But again, a lot of these new characters were completely terrible that he introduced. Again, like the whole Rose character, I feel bad for the actress because I can only imagine that and how much
It's one of
abuse she
those.
took
Yeah,
online.
she did the best with what she was given, and she
Yeah,
gets all the flack for.
but her character is terrible. She's
Yeah,
obnoxious in the film, and
yeah.
she's like this forced love interest. It's like, where does this come from? She's an awful character that I have no interest or care about, and like and I don't in a way I don't blame them.
Commander Hodo, what's her name? Yeah,
Yeah, oh
Laura
yeah,
Linney. Um,
Laura Linney, not Laura Linney.
no,
Laura Dern.
Dern. I think okay. There's a lot
Laura
of
Dern.
Laura's.
Yeah.
And they look alike, don't they? No, never mind. I don't know.
Kind of, yeah,
But,
kind of,
yeah,
yeah. But
anyway.
yeah, Laura Dern's is kind of a frustrating character because it's like
dumb.
this not telling Poe
It's just dumb.
the full plan. It's so stupid. It's Ryan Johnson, and this is kind of a frustration I have with, ironically, Christopher Nolan too, where they have the sheen in which their films are really solid, and they make people think that their films are really like genius, but when you really start to research the stories of their films and elements of their creativity, it's very stupid and very frustrating.
On like a basic like human logic level, there's a lot that's just so stupid, and it just like that's what made it. Kind of ultimately, I was kind of with you there. I felt bored after a point.
Yeah, because I started, like, especially after a while, I started seeing how they were editing the thing. Like, okay, we're going back to this character now. Oh, great. So it's the end of this scene. So we're going back to Luke now. Oh, great. Now we're going back to Poe's story now. Great. Oh, they're still being chased after.
Yes.
This is like the fourth time we see them getting chased after. Okay, now we're going back to them at the casino for some reason. Now we're going. It's like it just becomes incredibly tedious.
And
then we get to
really just waiting for him to get back to the Rey Kylo thing, because that's the only one that I have, like, it's developed investment in me.
And in a way, Abrams, I think, knew that was one of the more interesting elements, because he kept that connection element in the last film, which is probably worse than Last Jedi, and that's not as cohesive.
Yeah, it's worse than all of them.
It feels like I remember watching this in the theaters, and I remember seeing like this. The editing is completely atrocious.
Like
and it just goes.
Worst Star Wars film, do you think? Even including the ones the expanded universe ones.
I mean, say what you will about the prequels, but at least like George Lucas had a proper vision, and he had like a lot of elements that were interesting, and he tried, even though there's a lot of bad execution with like the acting and the CGI all over the place. At least it felt like he had a passion in some extent.
Yeah, funnily enough, I completely forgot about the prequels just now. They completely deleted from my brain.
Sadness.
Okay, you know what? Well.
I can at least respect that the prequels had a vision and a passion.
Yeah.
And the third one, the ninth one, was just like, okay, we got to finish this shit.
Yeah.
We're done. We got to finish this turd.
Yeah. It's the most. That's the thing. The prequels, especially the first and second one, are just there's a lot of boring. But. I guess I don't know. The third one upsets me more. I don't know, just because it feels like the most cynically,
Episode
clinically
3?
made kind of thing. We need to mark off all these boxes. Let's just get it done. Go.
Are you talking about episode 9 or episode 3?
The third of the trilogy. I guess that's episode 9.
The J.J. Abrams trilogy.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams. That's the one that felt the most cynical.
Yeah.
In terms of just, this is a product. We have to take all these boxes. Let's get it done. Again, like you say what you want about the prequels. George Lucas cared about them on some level. He was trying to do something new. I don't think it particularly worked out super great. I love the world that that they kind of expanded on to some degree. But narrative wise, this is kind of a slog.
And if anything, though, the prequels they helped be the seeds for different shows and other inspirations for shows. I mean, you can't really say about this for this new trilogy, because they're all going back to the old trilogy stuff. They want to focus more on the Mandalorian, which is before these new films.
It inspired other people, because you could sense the passion there in the prequels.
Yeah.
You can sense like Lucas actually cared about the worlds and stuff like that, and the artists and stuff that were creating it cared about how, like, okay, this is kind of a more jungle world, or this character has these little details to them, like even the Jedi Council and how each of them look all so strange and weird. And again, clearly there's a whole bunch of history behind them. And again, just in Lucas leading that creation, it might have been other people's designs and stuff, to be fair. But exactly. Clearly there was a lot of passion put into those films, and you sense that, and you want to build off of that, and that's what you get with like the Dark Horse comics, or even years later, you get the stinking Clone Wars like CGI animated series trying to build off of a film from the early 2000s and expanding that war, because hey, that looked really cool. What happened during that war? No one's going to go. Not no one. That's not fair. But outside of, because now it's Disney product, it is a Disney-fied thing. Outside of people that have to, I don't know how many people are going to want to make like stuff based off of the lore set in the third, movie.
I don't think they do. I honestly don't think they're. I wouldn't doubt they would make a sequel to this trilogy in the future, but it's probably not be for a long time because people just don't give a crap about this trilogy of characters anymore.
Are people really going? Again, you can sense it in the Dark Horse comics. Like, somebody gives a crap, and they're given free reign to give a crap about these characters and develop them in different ways. And I look at the third one, and I don't feel that. Or the third one of the new trilogy is what I'm. And I just don't feel that passion. And that's the saddest thing to me, because even the prequels at their dullest moments, there's so many weird decisions that, again, like that stupid 50s diner in the middle of a Star Wars film. It's such a stupid thing, but like, that's fun.
It's inspired.
Yeah, it's clearly it meant a lot to to Lucas or something. It's like, this will be a fun thing to put in the Star Wars film.
But to be fair, there was a bit of inspiration in some elements of Episode 9. I think, especially using a lot of the old Ralph McQuarrie images as kind of like a basis to build off of in this. There's some stuff here and there. Like, there's some cool locations.
Some of the
I like
location stuff, yeah.
Like the Emperor's base is terrifying, and that's one of the pluses that, and this is probably more of a controversial. Like, I don't really have too much of an issue with the Emperor, because in the expanded universe of the comics, he was always gonna come back, and that's something that you and I both grew up on. That he came back at one point. So me seeing him come back, it is, I guess, a cheap way to bring him back and just have like an easy villain, but I'm not. It doesn't bother me as much as it probably.
The main thing for me was his plan. It's just as stupid as sin again. And they try. You hear about this a lot. They just tried to kind of brush it away with force magic. It's just lots of force magic involved. How he can spawn a crap ton of like giant planet destroying ships.
That was very stupid. But I did like the Emperor. At least he is kind of terrifying in this.
It's one consistent performance across the entire series.
Yeah, again, if that was the build-up point, I would have been perfectly fine. Like that, I can see the gem of an idea there, of like this epic, like horrific ending, capped off. But again, it's just that all that discontinuity with the entire new trilogy, and they're just trying to.
They should have set up certain plot points, especially for the main stories, and then left like kind of what DC's doing. Or
Marvel.
But leave the individual movies that are outside of the main storyline. Just let people have fun with it. Do something weird with it. Again, I really like, especially how DC's doing it in terms of especially we've seen this is the same franchise that has the Justice League film also has the Joker and the Batman films
and the Suicide Squad
all totally different tones and kind of focuses and levels of grounding in reality, but they're all, again, it's they're all creative, and you feel again that creative energy and that drive. I just I don't know. You have to, if you're going to have a narrative and story that's going to span 3 movies and characters that are going to develop and stuff like that, you need to have an idea where you're going to go.
You need a Kevin Feige. Yeah. And I think that's in some ways they're realizing that, because again you got Jon Favreau and you got Dave Filoni. To be fair, their most recent the Book of Boba Fett was not a good project of theirs, but however I think for the most part they have been on a decent a better standing of how to control a long arching storyline comparatively to the movies with J.J. Abrams. So at least there's some possibilities that they're kind of trying that in some form. So hopefully they continue that. But if they get this random directors with no interest in wanting to continue the story that was previously created, then they just give up at that point. There's just no point. It's just gonna be a disjointed mess of a series.
I would love to have heard Rian Johnson's pitch. Like, so all the stuff that you set up in the other one, I'm gonna pretend it didn't happen, or that I'm just gonna say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. None of it matters.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Hired. Fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, and here's another quick question. So this is regarding the stupid line where they fly now. When Poe Dameron says they fly now, well, the Empire always had jetpacks. Yeah. They always, at least not in the movies, but but in the extended media, they always had jetpacks. So that's just a stupid.
That's a good point. They don't ever really show them in the shows or movies. In the shows, yes, not in the movies.
The shows, the video games, the extended media, which again, because Disney is so childishly saying that, oh no, we don't need the extended media, it's all legend crap. Well, now you're having that legend stuff inspire your actual writings, and you're taking all this extended material stuff and you're having it in your shows and movies. So yeah, I guess your ego with saying that your visions are better essentially than those who created stuff in the past. So it's just a bunch of BS on Disney's part.
It's the whatchamacallit. We're gonna have our own universe, and it's gonna be ours, but we're just going to take the parts that we like from the other one.
Yeah, because Disney has no original bone in their body, and they're too lazy to actually want to try to make stuff that's really brand new anymore. But
okay, all right, rant's over.
Rant's over. So yes, so regarding so pretty much the newest trilogy of Star Wars films are complete trash. Force Awakens had potential, even though it was really flawed in its story design, and J.J. Abrams isn't the strongest story writer.
It was at least fun overall.
Yeah, fun characters. Again, decent setups for characters that end up petering out because... Just
don't think about it. It's a Game of Thrones situation. Just watch the first 6 seasons.
Game of Thrones at least had at least did something with their characters to an extent, and then they gave up at the last second. This one, they gave up in the second film.
It was dipping the last 3 seasons. We're just going to stop. Just stop at season 6. Stop at season 6. You don't need to see anymore. It's fine.
It kept me interested in till the last season. Damn it, it's fine.
Okay, don't do it. Don't listen to him. Trust me.
It's fine. The series has always had issues. Even the first seasons, fight me. It's fine.
Issues are different than the steep cliff, Ian. We're not talking about this anymore. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Actually, I need to do my outro now. So we're moving to that part of the podcast. So hopefully this is serviceable to edit and post. So if you like our content and want to support the show, then please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really do appreciate the support either way. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Take care.